you've been following Tommy and you've been attending a lot of rallies and everything. Well, what's been the personal cost to you?
It's a huge financial cost. It's very expensive to get to rallies. I travel to England from outside of England, so it's costly for me to get here. I mean, I'm here for the day to day. It's probably going to cost me about 300 quid in terms of travel expenses and food and trains and that sort of thing. So the financial cost is big. There's a cost in terms of every other area of your life. When you get involved in this, you've got to be fully engaged. You can't do this as a little part-time hobby. You've got to be going at it full tilt. And that obviously means that other things suffer. Relationships suffer. Work life suffer. Also the stigma attached. I mean, there's this dreadful lie that we're all far-right nut jobs and white supremacists, which is completely obviously untrue. And you know, you have that stigma that is, once you become public in this, that stigma sticks to you, and once you become public, you can't really put it back in the box. That's you. Once you're out, you're out. So there is a cost. But the thing about it is, look at the cost that the men paid on D-Day. I mean, your documentary is called British Heroes. The British heroes were the guys that stormed the beaches of Normandy, the British, the Americans, the Canadians, the Indians and everybody else that stormed those beaches in the 1940s. They're heroes. What we're doing is standing for our country, and in every generation there comes a time when you have to stand up and you have to take a stand. Thankfully our stand is a peaceful stand and a democratic stand. We're not having to fight, but the cost is worth paying. The cost is worth paying.
So when you see all these demonstrators here today, sort of left-wingers are calling you all Nazis and all that, I mean, it's utterly ridiculous, isn't it?
It's ridiculous. I mean, to be quite honest with you, those guys are an irrelevance. The bigger problem that we've got is that the establishment considers us to be Nazis and far-right and extremists. That's the frightening thing. They don't get what we're about, they don't understand us, or they do get what we're about and they want to demonise us and make us appear to be far-right extremists. So the mainstream media, government bodies, counter-extremism commissions, the police, the security services, they see us. This is how I perceive it. I perceive it that they see us as big a threat to national security as the Islamist terrorists that are basically have caused chaos in our country. So I think that's a far more worrying thing than a few idiots chanting Nazi scum off our street. I mean, they're not very original. They don't seem to have too many original thoughts in their brains. But the problem is the people who have control of power, they perceive us to be extremists, and that is a very, very big concern of mine.
Do you worry about your safety? Also, I mean, with the creeping kind of censorship that's going on, that you know you can be arrested now for saying the wrong thing. Do you worry about those sort of things?
I don't worry about my personal safety at all. I served in the British Army in Northern Ireland in the 1980s. I've had terrorists try to murder me before. I've had people violently attack me before. So I'm not concerned about my own safety. I've been concerned about my family's safety, and I've taken precautions at my own house to mitigate some of that. But personally, if something happens to me for this cause, well, you know, that's just part of the territory. I've lived under a de facto death threat since I was in the army, so it doesn't really bother me that much.
Well, you get some people. Is it Justin Smith, who was a friend of yours, who was arrested as he left the country? I mean, great personal cost to him.
Absolutely.
As well.
Justin's paid a huge price for this. I mean, Justin did a demo for Tommy at Speaker's Corner with me. It's actually my fault. I called the demo. Justin did a demo with me at Speaker's Corner. Now, maybe it was coincidence, maybe not. But he went to I think Amsterdam to do a business deal, and he was arrested on some trumped-up charge and ended up in prison, I think, for 6 or 8 months. And he paid a very heavy price. I think that the biggest threat that we've got at the moment is the creeping censorship, like you say. I think I've lost one of my Facebook accounts in the last few days. YouTube are clamping down on people. They're putting the ridiculous thing. They're putting restrictions on videos that are talking about Tommy Robinson, and yet there's all sorts of videos on YouTube with profanity in them, with all sorts of incitement, with all sorts of really, really nasty stuff. And yet you mention anything that is deemed to be far right, and they will close you down. What Facebook, particularly Facebook, are doing is Stalinist. I got a 30-day ban on Facebook for having a picture of me and Tommy at the last trial, a picture of me and him on the platform, and I got a 30-day ban on Facebook. There's people getting their account closed down left, right and centre for associating with Tommy. What they're doing is unpersoning people. It's totally totalitarian, if you can say totally totalitarian. And that's a big worry. I think the censorship is far more of a worry to me than any attacks on my own physical person. Because if we lose freedom of speech, we can't talk about these vitally important issues. And I believe with all my heart that the UK is in grave danger of being in a situation where it is Islamised to such an extent, to such a state, that de facto Sharia law will be imposed on various parts of the country. In fact, I believe we're almost there already.
Do you think it's an exaggeration of what's happening, or are we sleepwalking to it, or what?
I honestly believe we're sleepwalking into it. Like I say, I wasn't politically engaged. I was always a political watcher, so I was very aware of what was going on, but I wasn't politically engaged until 2 years ago. Now that I've got engaged and I've started reading more and more and more, and I've become privy to more and more information on what's happening, even at governmental level, we are in big trouble. One of the things that I think is vital that we talk about is the new definition of Islamophobia. And it says two things. First of all, it says that Islamophobia is racism. Now, as far as I know, Islam is a religion like Christianity is a religion, like Buddhism is a religion. So to class Islamophobia with racism is very, very, very dangerous, because straight away it means if you say something about Islam, by the very fact that they've called Islamophobia racism, you will then be on the wrong side of certainly what becomes government orthodoxy and possibly the law. So people are going to be getting prosecuted for speaking out about Islam. I do not think that's beyond the realms of possibility. The second part of that legislation says that Muslimness or perceived Muslimness must be protected. Now, what does Muslimness mean? I mean, I'm sure Jihadi John thought he had lots of Muslimness, but at the same time you could have a very, very moderate Ahmadiyya Muslim who's not an extremist who also has Muslimness. So this broad terminology is extremely dangerous. The head of the counter-terrorist command, or the former head of the counter-terrorist command, has written a lengthy document on this, I think for Policy Exchange, where he says the new definition of Islamophobia is dangerous to policing, it's dangerous to national security, and it's dangerous to freedom of speech. Christian Concern, a Christian lobby group, have come out against it. The Humanist Society, the Secular Society have come out against it. But have the politicians listened? No. In Scotland, every single main party has adopted the new definition of Islamophobia. SNP, Scottish Tory, Scottish Labour, Scottish Lib Dems, they've all signed up to it, and the Scottish Green Party. In England, the only party that hasn't signed up to it yet is the Conservative Party. And goodness knows how long before they crumble and they say, yes, we'll sign up to this as well. So I think we're in really dangerous territory with that definition and the legislation that will follow that definition of Islamophobia. And the other legislation that, again, all this stuff's been sneaked under the rug because of Brexit, is the internet harms legislation. Now, when you first read it, it looks very reasonable. It's trying to stop people posting child abuse online. Who wouldn't agree with that? Everybody should agree with that. Trying to stop people posting terrorist content online. Of course you would agree with that. Who wouldn't agree with that? But then they drill down and they get down to the right, and that they want to stop people who are perceived to be far right posting content on the internet. And that's extremely dangerous, because who is it defines what is far right and what isn't far right? I know my definition, but it's probably different to the man sitting next to me.
So do you worry for the future of our children in this country?
That's why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I've got 2 children in the 20s. I've got 2 grandchildren that are under 10, and I've seen what happens when this goes wrong. I served in Northern Ireland when Northern Ireland was a very interesting place to serve, and there was a very high possibility that when you were out on patrol you'd be shot at, bombed, people try to kill you. And there was literally a sectarian slaughter match for 40 years in Northern Ireland. It was thankfully brought to an end by the British Army. That's another story. So I've seen where this goes if it's not handled right, and we will either capitulate to Islamists and Sharia, because the demographics show that we're going to be in a position soon where maybe 10-15% by 2030, 2040 of the population will be Muslim. When they get to that point, and I know it's terrible saying they, but we've got to say it, when they get to that point, the extremists among them will start making demands for Sharia law. They will start making demands for imposing blasphemy law in the UK. It's already happening. So when we reach that tipping point, we're going to be in big trouble. And what's going to happen is the British people are either going to roll over and allow the UK to become a de facto Islamic state, or they're going to stand up and say, we're not having this. Either way, Either way, this doesn't end well. And we have a very small window now to deal with this democratically and to deal with this through the ballot box and say to any religion, you cannot have a preferential treatment. We identified 4 principles. I'm involved with a group called the UK Freedom Movement. We identified 4 principles that basically are the essence of Britishness. The governments have been trying to look for what the essence of Britishness are for years. But these 4 principles sum it up. First one is freedom. That's freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, freedom of thought. And obviously freedom of political thought as well. The next one is equality. We're not talking about the crazy wacko equality agenda. We're talking about genuine equality before the law, where everybody, irrespective of race, religion, colour, sex or sexuality, is treated absolutely equally. That's the sort of equality that we should be doing. The next one's democracy. Now, the European Union don't believe in democracy. Extremist Islamists don't believe in democracy. The far left don't believe in democracy, and the far right don't believe in democracy. So those principles are absolutely vital. And the final one is sovereignty. And if we lose the sovereignty of our country, and we are subsumed and swallowed up by this European superstate, there's all sorts of trouble coming down the road. Of course, we're already swallowed up by it. What we're trying to do at the minute is basically break free from it. So those principles, we think, are principles that could help put the country back together again. But the point I'm making is we need to do this now. We haven't got 5 years, 10 years. We need to be active, lobbying political parties, lobbying politicians. We've created a great alliance with UKIP. We're very friendly with Amber Waters. Tommy's doing his own thing up in the northwest. There's a lot happening at grassroots level in these working class communities that is positive and is good, but again, it's not being reported. All that the government does, and the BBC and the media, is say they're far-right extremists. So, yeah.
It relates to veterans, how we treat our veterans in this country, and, you know, the persecution of veterans, the supposed war issues. What's your feelings on that?
Well, we're doing a demonstration on the 18th of May. It's going to be a nationwide demonstration from Belfast to Glasgow to Newcastle to Manchester, London, and the veterans are going to get out on the street and protest for their brothers who we all served in Northern Ireland. The vast majority of people served in Northern Ireland. This generation of veterans, you would say Northern Ireland, Iraq, Afghanistan. The lads that served in Northern Ireland in the early 70s, when people living in 21st century United Kingdom, whether it's in Northern Ireland, whether it's in London, wherever we are, we cannot comprehend what was happening in the early 70s in Belfast. It was a war zone. It literally was. There was shootings and bombings every single day. And what happened was some of the soldiers got involved in controversial shootings. They fired the weapons and people were killed. Now, were the people that were killed innocent? Maybe some of them were, maybe they weren't. I don't know the individual cases. But I know this, that no soldier that I ever served with went out on patrol in Northern Ireland with intent of murdering people in his heart. That's just not the way the British Army works. What happened in Northern Ireland in the 70s is things happened, soldiers reacted, and it either went right or it went wrong. Now, for those soldiers to be dragged before the courts after 40 and 50 years, some of these men are in the 60s and 70s. One man is literally living with terminal cancer. He's looking at life in prison for an incident that happened in, I think, 1972 or 1973. If that man goes to prison, he'll die in prison. It's as simple as that. I think that's totally unacceptable, especially when you had murderers in Northern Ireland. There's murderers in Northern Ireland now. They're strutting the streets of Belfast. They own nightclubs, they own pubs, they own massive property portfolios. These were men that were IRA men that were actually going out deliberately with murder in their heart and with murderous intent and killing people. They will never, ever face serious time in prison. The most time a terrorist can spend in prison if he's convicted of a murder or even multiple murders is 2 years. And many of them have so-called letters of comfort that were given to them by the treacherous Tony Blair and his henchmen. So what's happening to the veterans, particularly ones that served in Northern Ireland, is absolutely scandalous. And I think what needs to happen is very simply, every single veteran that served in the 3 conflicts I mentioned, Northern Ireland, Afghanistan, Iraq, you could put Sierra Leone in there as well, and Kosovo. Every soldier that served in those war zones should be given complete Crown immunity, because there is not enough evidence to convict them fairly. If you send a soldier to Northern Ireland and he has to go before a jury, how's he going to get a fair trial? An English soldier standing before a jury of people that may well be hostile to him. It's absolutely ridiculous. The prosecution of soldiers had to stop, but again, the government's done nothing. The government's betrayed the soldiers the same way they betrayed every single community in this country. They betrayed the working class girls that were the victims of the rape gangs. They betrayed the victims of terrorism by not taking a hard enough line against these Islamic terrorist organisations in the UK. And now they're betraying us over the EU, and they're betraying us over the imposition of de facto Sharia law with these definitions of Islamophobia. So it's all connected. It's all connected. And I'll be honest, I don't think that the people that are running this country care two figs about me or you. They don't care what happens to us. What they want to do is work on their own little legacy, whatever that may be, and that's reprehensible. And like I say, it's time to change these. It's time to change the guard at Parliament Square. It's time to get rid of these people and put some new people in that might well care about the country and do something for the United Kingdom.
So finally, are you a British hero?
No. I could never consider. Look, I said earlier that the true British heroes are people like Blair Mayne, Robin Horsfall, people like the men that stormed the beaches of Normandy, Winston Churchill. I wouldn't even lace any of those people's boots, and I wouldn't try to. What we do may have to be heroic from time to time, but that doesn't make you a hero. We're doing what has to be done. This is vital work we're involved in. This is not a game, it's not a hobby. This is for the posterity of our country, for your children and my children. That doesn't make me a hero, it makes me a concerned citizen.